English with Deck.
Okay, now today I just thought I'd share something which is quite, interesting and relevant to, well, all of us in one way, shape or form. Now, that is something which is, essential. It's an essential thing, essential service in our lives. And when that service is, taken away, or when that service is made void, it causes major issues. And throughout history, without this service, issues have arisen. Now, one great, example of this is, I think a couple of years back, in France, in Paris actually. I remember hearing about it on the news, and then basically the people who deal with this service went on strike. And what happened was, long story short, they just refused to tidy up the trash, the rubbish, as we would use in British English, the rubbish. But we can use trash, of course, interchangeably. Anyway, they refused to tidy it up, and over a few days, it suddenly accumulated into a mountain. Well, it started off as a figurative mountain, however, it very quickly became a literal mountain of rubbish. And I believe, maybe if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I believe they had their demands met, and they ended up tidying it up very shortly after that. Now, what I am talking about is putting out the rubbish, putting out the trash. Maybe you've heard of this a bit more, but obviously in England we would say putting out the rubbish, taking out the rubbish. Now, in most countries, they have a specific way of doing it, a specific method. And, you follow by the rules of that method because, it helps to sort of organise, to sort it, and to dispose of it properly. For example, you have recyclables, non-recyclable. You have metal, non-metal, and obviously, you think about batteries and stuff, which if disposed of incorrectly can cause not just environmental issues, but hazardous issues to people and buildings. And, Japan is one of those countries which is quite renowned for the fact that the rubbish system is ridiculously complex, looking at it from an outsider's perspective. Now, after a while, you get used to it, and it makes sense. I get it to a degree. But it is very complex. For starts, there is a really high population meaning a high amount of rubbish. And therefore rubbish needs to be disposed of accordingly. Now, it might sound, Deck, most places have a reasonably complex or reasonably finicky system. Well, to put it into perspective, when you come to Japan, you will notice that there are many signs saying this goes here, this goes there, this goes here, this goes there. You even see them in the hotels, for example, and not just in your communal rubbish areas. And, for a start, you have your what is called burnable and non-burnable. Essentially, perishable, non-perishable. Now, when I say perishable, I don't just mean food products. I also mean, rubbish which essentially can be burnt, incinerated, for use of a better word. Now, some of these items, you might think, this should be recycled, and it probably should. However, it doesn't get recycled in this way it might do in another country. You have your burnable and your non-burnable, and then you have specific days to put out your recycling goods. It sounds very normal, right? Yes. However, where this gets interesting is, as far as I'm aware, nationwide, you have to use, well, clear or more or less clear bags, so that the rubbish collectors, the bin men, can see the contents inside. Simply because if there is contents which should not be in there, then they will refuse to collect it, and they leave a little note on it. And then this also goes for the fact of disposing of electronic goods can be a little bit finicky. That's that word again. Now, again, they have to be disposed of correctly, so I kind of get that as well. Now, but disposing of your larger goods. Now, when I say larger, basically, I mean anything over, let's say, 30, 40, maybe 40 centimeters plus would count as larger. Maybe 50, actually. Yeah, 40, 50. Anyway, a larger good. A larger product, a larger thing. If you want to dispose of that, you need to get a specific ticket for this. Again, kind of standard, but the cost is pretty high. Therefore, a lot of people, well, if they have the ability to, they will get rid of it themselves to avoid this cost. Or, now what can often happen is people will sort of do it, well, either illegally or they will sort of just, not get rid of it. But one thing this does create, and I have noticed, is it creates this sort of habit, this sort of almost a cultural aspect of when you are buying things, for the majority of people, they are reasonably careful about or considerate about the actual size of the product. Now, also, people's houses tend to be a bit smaller, but also you have to be aware of how you're going to get rid of the old product or this product down the line. That's very generalizing and probably pretty generous, but yeah, it does create this sort of way of thinking there. Now, this is all very simplified, but yeah, in a nutshell, that is the Japanese household rubbish disposal system. Yeah, so I hope this episode has been reasonably enlightening for you. But for now, have a brilliant morning, have a fantastic afternoon, and make the most of your evening. But not too much fun. Alright, see you in the next one. Bye now.